So we'll be getting you more details as they emerge, but for now, though, let's in fact turn to what is happening in the Red Sea. The Red Sea is on the boil. Merchant vessels that are predominantly linked to Israel, the United States and the United Kingdom that traverse one of the world's most crucial maritime choke points face repeated attacks from the Iran-backed Houthis from Yemen. Now, despite the American-led campaign, the Houthis remain committed, they say, in defending the cause of the Palestinians in solidarity with the Palestinians, where they've been firing missiles and drones at American warships. So with the military options faltering, what options does the United States have in trying to rein in the Houthis? Our next report gets you details on what the Biden administration is now doing in terms of back-channel diplomacy, where it appears to be seeking Iran's help in trying to rein in the Houthis to make the Red Sea corridor safe for commercial shipping again. Take a look.
The Iran-backed Houthi rebels are on a rampage in the Red Sea. Since October 2023, they have unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks on commercial vessels traversing this vital trade artery. Over 57 strikes have targeted ships, disrupting global supply chains. This aggressive campaign has raised fears of further escalation. The US-led military response, joined by the UK with airstrikes, has seemingly failed to rein in the Houthis. But the rebel group seems to be emboldened, not deterred. The attacks on commercial vessels continue unabated. In recent days, the Iran-backed rebels have even grown more brazen, firing missiles at a US Navy destroyer on patrol.
The Houthis have continued to launch these reckless attacks with no regard for the well-being of innocent civilians who are transiting through the Red Sea, and now they have unfortunately and tragically killed innocent civilians.
Now, the White House has opened back-channel talks with Iran. According to the Financial Times, indirect negotiations took place in Oman, marking a strategic shift by Washington. It is reported that in January, the U.S. delegation held talks with Iran, which were mediated by Oman. Tehran claims limited influence over the rebels, a stance the West strongly rejects. The Houthis say that the attacks will go on till Israel continues its assault on Gaza. The rebels blame the U.S. of backing Israel and fanning the conflict.
The Yemeni armed forces have confirmed that they will continue to prevent Israeli navigation or these ships heading to the ports of occupied Palestine in the Red and Arab Seas until the aggression stops and the siege on Palestinian people in Gaza Strip is lifted.
The stakes remain perilously high. The Houthis control large swaths of Yemen and have amassed a remarkably diverse array of anti-ship weaponry, cruise and ballistic missiles, rockets and armed drones. Their unrelenting attacks have forced shipping firms to reroute vessels away from this crucial trade choke point, potentially driving up global prices. The U.S. has deployed several naval assets in West Asia to contain the situation from expanding, but the Houthis pose a tough challenge.
The conflict has prompted new dynamics even as it has entrenched old ones. We continue to assess that Hezbollah and Iran do not want to cause an escalation of the conflict that pulls us or them into a full-out war. Yet the Houthis entered the war and were willing to do so without Iran acting first, becoming one of the most aggressive actors in the conflict.
These back-channel negotiations offer a slim hope. Washington aims to leverage Iran's alleged sway to check the Houthis and prevent catastrophic escalation. However, Iran insists it cannot dictate to the rebels, only encourage them towards dialogue. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, now to help make sense of this interesting American policy of having back-channel talks with Iran, we're being joined by Professor Peter Kuznick, who's in fact joining us live from Washington. He's a professor of history and also the director of Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University. Professor Kuznick, thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us here on WION. And let me in fact start out by asking you, what do you make of these reports which state that the United States in fact held back-channel talks with Iran in the month of January? And a lot of people say this is, of course, to try and rein in the Houthis, who've been attacking commercial shipping, predominantly linked to Israel, the United States and the United Kingdom, in the context of the Gaza war that is presently underway.
January was an important month. It was also in January, on January 11th, that the United States and Britain began launching missile attacks against the Houthis in Yemen. So there were back-channel negotiations. The Americans and the Iranians did not speak directly to each other. The officials from Oman conducted shuttle diplomacy between the two sides. The U.S. top Middle East negotiator, Brett McGurk, was involved in these talks, and they were going to resume in February, but they never did because they had other priorities. So I think the significance is that the United States and Iran are communicating with each other, not only about what's going on in the Red Sea, but to some degree about nuclear issues and regional issues more broadly. But this is not an urgent kind of direct negotiation, and it seems to have had little impact on what the Houthis themselves have been doing. There is a large degree of independence from Iran on the part of the Houthis. They are not being dictated to by Iran. We don't know what kind of pressure Iran is putting on them. We do know that at least some of the weapons that the Houthis have been using come from Iran, and that at certain times Iran has provided some intelligence. But Iran seems to be trying to tamp down some of the tensions and has not been trying to see this escalate.
And also, why do you think the Americans would be, engaging in back-channel talks with Iran at this moment? What do you think is actually the American strategy here?
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't seem that they are engaging at this moment. We're talking about talks that went on between 6 weeks and 2 months ago. So the United States is trying to limit the expansion of this conflict. But the Israelis are listening to the Americans no more than the Houthis seem to be listening to the Iranians. So the potential for escalation is still quite real and quite alarming, because the allies of Iran and the United States don't seem to be listening or abiding by what those countries want at this point. The Houthis have been the most aggressive Iranian ally. We see the militias in Iraq and Syria tamping down some of their activities. Hezbollah has been hesitant to escalate this, but the Houthis seem to be the most aggressive force tied to Iran in the region in terms of going to this shipping, and that does not seem to be slowing down.
Now, my quick final question to you on this is, the fact that the United States seems to be indicating the reason why these back-channel talks have taken place is because the United States does not want this conflict to widen up. But the fact that it continues to back Israel, do you think that what the Americans are saying in terms of that they do not want this conflict to widen up, but the fact that Israel has continued with its war and is now threatened to, in fact, invade, carry out a ground incursion into Rafah, points to the fact that this conflict is not going to end anytime soon?
That's tragic. We know what's happening there in terms of the famine, the starvation, the desperation of the Gazan people. We know that the numbers of actual dead, the experts all estimate, is much higher than the official total, in the low 30,000. And so the international pressure to end this, to get a ceasefire and get that humanitarian aid in there is enormous right now. But if you listen to Netanyahu's words to AIPAC yesterday, The Israelis are not backing off, not slowing down, and are going to proceed as they wish, despite pressure. So Biden's words are one thing, but U.S. actions contradict Biden's public words. As the U.S. continues to provide aid and the U.S. continues to provide weapons to Israel. So the words are nice, but their actions are not.
Absolutely, indeed. That I think is the contrast that a lot of people are witnessing. Biden is saying one thing, but the actions of the American government seem to be contradictory to that. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Kuzniak, for joining us and getting us those insights there.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.